Many people consider Michael Jordan the greatest player in history. But there was a man whom Jordan himself admired. He was called the future face of the NBA. He scored 73 points in a single game, amazed fans with incredible flights, and seemed destined to become a legend. But in just a few years, he lost almost everything. What destroyed the career of the man who should have ranked among the greatest players of all time? And why is he remembered much less today than he deserves? And at the end of this video, I will share a little-known fact about David Thompson that even many NBA fans do not know. In the mid-1970s, it seemed he would become the new face of world basketball. Fans came to games specifically to see him fly above the court. Coaches could not figure out how to stop him. Defenders knew that even a perfectly executed defense would far from always help. And young players tried to copy his style, though almost no one succeeded. He possessed the speed of a guard, the plasticity of a gymnast, and a leaping ability that many considered simply unbelievable. It seemed the laws of gravitation did not apply to him. Every appearance on the court turned into a real show where no one could predict which play would become the main highlight of the evening. But then, something happened that almost no one expected. The career of the man predicted to take a place among the greatest players of all time began to change rapidly. Instead of endless victories, came severe trials. Instead of talk about new records, completely different events were discussed more and more often. A story that could have become one of the greatest in NBA history gradually turned into one of the most painful disappointments of its generation. Why did a basketball player, whom many specialists considered even more talented than most stars of his era, fail to realize his full potential? What happened to the man who inspired the future Michael Jordan and showed what basketball above the rim could be long before the appearance of modern superstars? The answers to these questions are capable of surprising even those who have followed the history of the NBA for many years. And be sure to watch the video to the end. At the very end, I will tell a little-known fact about David Thompson that far from all NBA fans know. David Thompson's story began long before thousands of fans began chanting his name in crowded arenas. He was born on July 13, 1954, in Shelby, North Carolina. It was there that it first became clear an unusual athlete was growing up around others. While most peers were just mastering the basics of the game, Thompson was already amazing coaches with his coordination, speed, and incredible ease of movement. During his school years, his talent developed rapidly. He stood out not only for the number of points scored, but also for how exactly he did it. He easily eluded defenders, hung in the air longer than the rest, and finished attacks as if the laws of physics simply did not exist for him. Already back then, spectators specially came to watch the young basketball player, who was increasingly spoken of as the future big discovery of American sports. However, a real breakthrough occurred after entering North Carolina State University, NC State. It was here that Thompson transformed from a promising youth into a player of national scale. He almost immediately became the team leader and began demonstrating basketball that seemed incredibly modern even by today's standards. In the early 1970s, college basketball was experiencing a real heyday. Competition was immense, and every match of the top universities gathered multi-thousand crowds and attracted the attention of the entire country. To become a star in such an environment, talent alone was not enough. It was necessary to constantly prove one's superiority, and Thompson coped with this brilliantly. In the 1973-74 season, he led NC State to the NCAA championship title. In the semifinals, his team met the undefeated UCLA University, which had won 7 championships in a row under the leadership of legendary coach John Wooden. Many believed it was impossible to stop this machine. But it was Thompson who became one of the main heroes of the match, and NC State's victory, with a score of 80-77 after 2 overtimes, is still considered one of the greatest upsets in the history of college basketball. A few days later, the university won the national title, defeating Marquette with a score of 76-64. For Thompson, this became the moment after which all of basketball America began talking about him. Now, no one doubted. Before them was a player ready to conquer the professional level. Over 3 seasons at NC State, he averaged over 26 points and nearly 9 rebounds per game. He was twice named the Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year, and in 1974, he received the prestigious Naismith Award as the nation's top college basketball player. Virtually all specialists agreed that such a combination of athleticism, technique, and natural talent is extremely rare. By the time he graduated from university, David Thompson was no longer just a promising player. He had turned into the main target of professional basketball. 2 of the strongest leagues in the country were ready to fight for the right to sign a contract with him. And a real battle lay ahead, with not only huge money at stake, but also the future of one of the brightest stars of his generation. By the summer of 1975, David Thompson's name was known far beyond college basketball. For most young players, entering a professional league was the fulfillment of a dream. But in Thompson's case, everything looked completely different. Now he wasn't looking for a team. Teams were fighting for him. At that time, there were 2 strongest professional leagues in the United States, the NBA and the ABA. Each sought to attract the most talented players, and the fight for future stars became increasingly fierce. When Thompson entered his name in the draft, it became obvious that he would be the main prize of that year. In the NBA draft, he was selected with the first pick by the Atlanta Hawks. Almost simultaneously, his ABA rights were acquired by the Denver Nuggets. A real confrontation began. Both sides understood that this was not just about a talented rookie. Before them was a man capable of changing the future of an entire franchise. In the end, Thompson chose the Denver Nuggets. The club offered him a contract that at the time was considered one of the largest for a rookie. This became a loud event in all of professional sports. The young basketball player, who had recently played for a college team, immediately found himself at the center of national attention. Expectations were colossal. Fans hoped to see a new leader, club management counted on fighting for a championship, and journalists closely followed literally every game he played. The pressure Thompson experienced was immense, but within the first weeks, it became clear he was capable of living up to the boldest predictions. He practically needed no time to adapt. Many rookies spent months getting used to the speed of professional basketball, yet Thompson looked as if he had been playing at this level his whole life. He easily passed experienced defenders, confidently finished attacks, and once again made the audience jump from their seats after another incredible leap. He finished his debut ABA season with impressive numbers, over 26 points and more than 6 rebounds on average per game. For a rookie, this was a phenomenal result. He was immediately included in the All-League team, recognized as one of the league's best players, and the Denver Nuggets turned into one of the main contenders for the championship title, thanks to his play. But numbers reflected far from everything. The main thing was the feeling Thompson left after every match. It seemed spectators were witnessing the birth of a new superstar. He didn't just score points. He did it beautifully, boldly, and with such ease that even opponents often did not hide their admiration. When the ABA merged with the NBA in 1976, many wondered, could Thompson maintain his supremacy among the best basketball players in the world? Some specialists believed that in the new league he would need time to get used to a higher level of competition. However, very soon it turned out that the fears were in vain. David Thompson was going to prove he was capable of shining on absolutely any court, and his most impressive performances were still ahead. After moving to the NBA, David Thompson didn't just confirm his level. He quickly became one of the most spectacular players in the entire league. It seemed that with each new match, he pushed the boundaries of human capabilities. Fans came to the arena not just for their team's victory. They wanted to see another episode that would be discussed across the country for a long time. It was then that the nickname Skywalker finally stuck to him. It perfectly reflected what was happening on the court. Thompson seemed to spend more time in the air than other players. He flew so high that it created the impression he could stop in flight, look around, and only then calmly send the ball into the hoop. His vertical leap became a legend. Contemporaries said Thompson could touch the top edge of the backboard, and some claimed that during workouts he almost peered down into the hoop from above. Even if some of these stories turned into beautiful legends over time, no one doubted the main thing. His athletic abilities were completely exceptional. At the same time, Thompson was never just an effective dunker. Behind the bright moments hid a basketball player of the highest class. He felt the game wonderfully, made decisions instantly, and attacked equally dangerously after drives, mid-range shots, and fast breaks. It was impossible to stop him in any single way. If defenders didn't let him pass to the basket, he confidently hit the target with a shot. If they tried to play tighter, he left the opponent behind thanks to his first step and incredible speed. Thompson became especially dangerous in fast breaks. As soon as teammates intercepted the ball, he instantly rushed forward. A few wide steps, a powerful push, and a moment later, the stands erupted in applause. Such episodes turned ordinary regular season matches into a real show. His impact was felt far beyond statistics. Young players tried to copy his movements. Coaches studied match recordings, and kids on street courts dreamed of at least slightly approaching what Thompson demonstrated. Many specialists later acknowledged that it was he who became one of the players who showed how important athleticism, speed, and play above the rim could be in modern basketball. Among those who closely watched Thompson was a young Michael Jordan. Subsequently, Jordan repeatedly stated that David had a huge impact on his understanding of what a basketball player could be. For the future NBA legend, Thompson was living proof that human capabilities are much broader than it seems. By the end of the 1970s, David Thompson was already among the main stars of the entire league. He regularly made all-star games. His name sounded alongside the best players of his generation, and fans were sure his most important achievement was yet to come. Very soon, he was to enter a battle with the greatest basketball players of his time, and it was then that the whole world saw how close he had come to the peak of the NBA. By the late 1970s, David Thompson was no longer considered just a talented player. Now his name regularly sounded alongside the greatest stars of the era. Every encounter with the strongest teams turned into an event, and confrontations with leading basketball players of the country gathered crowded stands. Fans understood they were watching a man capable of changing the course of any match single-handedly. After the ABA and NBA merger, many feared it would be difficult for former ABA players to compete in the new league. Thompson quickly dispelled all doubts. Already in his first season after the merger, he entered the ranks of the championship's top scorers, and his game practically did not change. He still easily scored points against the strongest defenders and continued to execute shots that seemed impossible. In the 1976-77 season, he was selected to the All-NBA First Team for the first time. This confirmed that David Thompson had finally entered the elite of world basketball. His Denver Nuggets managed to reach the playoffs immediately after moving to the NBA, and David himself became the unquestionable leader of the team. Each new season brought new achievements. He was invited to the All-Star Game several times, gathering the best players of the league. For many viewers, it was Thompson who became the main highlight of such meetings. Even among the brightest basketball players in the world, He stood out for his incredible lightness, speed, and ability to finish attacks in a way almost no one else could. But the brightest moment of that period was the battle for the scoring title of the 1977-78 season. Until the very last day of games, only two people remained leaders of the race: David Thompson and George Gervin. Their confrontation turned into a real sensation. All of Basketball America followed every point scored. In the final match of the season, Thompson understood he needed to show something incredible, and he did just that. In a game against the Detroit Pistons, he scored a fantastic 73 points. This was one of the highest scoring matches in NBA history. He executed the most complex shots, confidently attacked from any distance, and literally left the opponent no opportunity to stop him. It seemed such a performance should have been enough to permanently write his name into history as the top scorer of the season. However, a few hours later, George Gervin took the court. Knowing Thompson's result, he understood how many points needed to be scored to surpass his competitor. In the end, Gervin finished the match with 63 points and still retained the lead in average points per season. The difference between them turned out to be minimal, just a few hundredths of a point. This is still considered one of the most intense and dramatic scoring title races in league history. Despite the individual award going to Gervin, Thompson's performance made a huge impression on the entire basketball world. Scoring 73 points in an NBA game was achieved by only a few. This evening finally cemented his reputation as a player capable of the impossible. It seemed only new peaks awaited him ahead. He was just 23 years old. He was already among the strongest basketball players on the planet, regularly played in all-star games, fought for the most prestigious individual awards, and remained the main leader of the Denver Nuggets. Many specialists were confident that in the coming years, Thompson would certainly become an NBA champion and one of the main symbols of an entire era. But it was precisely then, when his career seemed to have reached an ideal trajectory, that events began to unfold which almost no one took seriously at first. From the outside, they looked like ordinary difficulties that many famous athletes face. However, it was precisely these changes that would soon forever alter the destiny of the man who had just recently been called the future greatest player in the world. From the outside, it seemed David Thompson continued to live a life millions dream of. He was an NBA star, regularly ranked among the league's top players, earned serious money for those times, and enjoyed huge popularity. Fans saw bright matches, standing ovations, and new records. But outside the court, a completely different story was gradually taking shape. Fame came to Thompson very early. Just a few years prior, he was the main hero of college basketball, and now he found himself among the country's most famous athletes. Constant press attention, promotional events, numerous invitations, and expectations from those around him accompanied him almost every day. Such a lifestyle required enormous inner discipline, and it was here that the first alarming signs began to appear. In the late 1970s, professional sports were very different from what we know today. Many clubs still did not pay serious attention to psychological support for players, lifestyle control, and recovery. Basketball players had much more freedom outside the court, and certain habits that later began to be perceived as serious problems often went without proper attention back then. At first, the changes were almost unnoticeable. Sometimes Thompson arrived at training camp not in the best physical condition. Sometimes coaches noticed his concentration was no longer as flawless as before. Such episodes rarely became public knowledge, so the majority of fans continued to believe their leader was at the peak of his capabilities. Then, physical problems appeared as well. Constant loads gradually made themselves felt. Each season included dozens of intense matches, numerous flights, and minimal time for full recovery. Even for an athlete with outstanding natural data, such a rhythm became a serious test. The heaviest blow was the injury to his left foot, sustained before the start of the 1979-80 season. Thompson broke a bone during an awkward fall. For the first time in many years, he had to give up regular basketball for a long time and focus on recovery. For a player whose entire game was built on explosive speed, incredible leaping ability, and lightning-fast reaction, such an injury had special significance. Although he managed to return to the court, many specialists noted that some movements no longer looked as easy as before. He still remained a very strong player, continued to score points and help the team, but the previous carefree lightness was gradually disappearing. Thompson himself later admitted that this period proved to be one of the most difficult in his career. Simultaneously, internal tension also grew. Expectations for bright performances, new records, and the fight for a championship title remained high. Every unsuccessful match drew questions from journalists, and any drop in scoring immediately became a topic of discussion. The higher an athlete climbs, the harder it is for others to accept the fact that they too can face difficulties. While fans hoped all problems were temporary, events were already beginning to unfold around David Thompson that could not be solved by willpower alone or extra training. Very soon, he was to meet an opponent against whom neither reliable defense nor winning tactics existed. And it was this fight that would prove to be the hardest in his life. By the early 1980s, the changes had become too noticeable to ignore. Fans still saw a talented basketball player on the court, capable of delivering a brilliant match, but the previous stability was gone. One evening, he looked unstoppable, and a few days later, he bore no resemblance to himself at all. For a player of this level, that was unusual. Gradually, it became clear that the main problems were not arising during games at all. Thompson increasingly made decisions that prevented him from staying at the level where he had been just a few years earlier. Later, he openly shared that during that period, alcohol and prohibited substances entered his life. Over time, they began to affect not only his well-being, but also his career. What proved especially dangerous was that at first the consequences were almost unnoticeable. His enormous natural talent allowed Thompson to show a high level for a long time. Even when his preparation was no longer ideal, he still remained one of the most gifted players in the league. That was precisely why many around him did not immediately grasp how serious the situation was becoming. But professional sports rarely forgive such mistakes. Gradually, speed decreased, previous lightness in movements vanished, and enduring the usual season rhythm became harder. Where everything used to happen instinctively, significantly more effort had to be applied now. For a player whose main advantage was explosive athleticism and instantaneous reaction, such changes mattered immensely. Coaches and Denver Nuggets management tried to help their leader. They understood they had a unique basketball player before them who could not simply be replaced by another player. However, the influence of bad habits gradually grew stronger. Discussions increasingly centered not only on match results, but also on what was happening outside the court. With each season, Thompson's statistics became less and less impressive. He could still put on bright games, reminding everyone what an incredible player he had been quite recently. But such evenings occurred less and less often. Fans saw only isolated flashes of former greatness, while consistent dominance was gone no more. Those who watched his career since college days perceived what was happening with particular pain. They clearly remembered the youth who defeated the invincible UCLA, filled arenas, and seemed a man without weak spots. Now before them was that same David Thompson, but his fight was no longer with opposing defenders. Later, Thompson himself did not try to make excuses. He honestly admitted that many decisions of that period turned out to be mistaken and were precisely one of the main reasons his career did not reach the heights that once seemed inevitable. Such an admission required no less courage than his famous drives to the basket once did. However, the hardest test awaited him ahead. A single incident changed everything so sharply that thoughts of fighting for championship titles and new records had to be forgotten. In just a few moments, the life of the man once called the future greatest player of his generation split into two completely different parts. In the spring of 1984, an event occurred after which it became finally clear fans would most likely never see the former David Thompson again. During a day off, he sustained a severe knee injury. According to Thompson's own recollections, this happened after an awkward fall on the stairs outside the famous New York club Studio 54. For most people, such an episode would be a serious nuisance. For a basketball player whose game was built on incredible jumping ability and lightning speed, the consequences turned out to be far heavier. Doctors did everything possible, but fully restoring his previous physical form proved impossible. After recovery, Thompson took the court again, continued to fight, and sincerely tried to return to his former level. However, every match showed the exact same picture. He still possessed high basketball intelligence, understood the game perfectly, and could help the team. But that very explosive first step and legendary flights over the rim were becoming fewer and fewer. For the Denver Nuggets, this was also a serious blow. The team lost the player around whom the entire offensive system was built. Fans hoped for a long time that one day Thompson would once again show the basketball that used to bring arenas to delight. But time passed, and bringing the past back grew increasingly difficult. In 1984, he was traded to the Seattle Supersonics. This was a new stage in his career, and perhaps his last chance to prove to himself that he was still capable of playing at the level of NBA stars. In individual games, Thompson truly resembled his former self. Sometimes a successful drive or spectacular shot made spectators see that very same Skywalker again. But such moments became the exception rather than the rule. With each new season, his role diminished. Just recently, he was fighting to be the league's top scorer, and now he increasingly came off the bench or spent significantly less time on the court. For any great athlete, such changes become a heavy test, especially when a person clearly understands what they were just a few years prior. In 1987, David Thompson finished his NBA career. He was only 33 years old. For many players, this is an age when they can still remain team leaders, but numerous injuries and the consequences of past mistakes had influenced his career far too heavily. The story of one of the most outstanding talents of a generation ended much earlier than anyone expected in the mid-1970s. And yet, it would be unfair to evaluate his career solely by what happened in its final years. Thompson managed to leave a huge mark on basketball history. He participated in 4 NBA All-Star games, was twice named to the All-NBA First Team, scored 73 points in a single match, and forever changed the perception of what an attacking player could be. Simply put, many fans still ask the same question: what heights could he have reached if circumstances had turned out differently? It seemed that after his career ended, this story was over for good. But it was precisely then that the most important victory in David Thompson's life began. A victory that no longer had anything to do with points, records, or championship titles. After completing his professional career, David Thompson found himself in a completely different reality. The crowded arenas, endless flights, and constant press attention vanished. But it was during this period that he had to do something far more difficult than any victory on the basketball court. Thompson understood that if he didn't change his life, everything he had once achieved would remain mere memory. He stopped hiding his mistakes and began speaking about them openly. Instead of seeking justifications, he honestly acknowledged many problems were the result of his own decisions. Such frankness made a strong impression, because far from every former athlete is ready to publicly speak about the hardest pages of their biography. Step by step, he reclaimed control over his life. This process was neither fast nor easy. It required enormous discipline, patience, and the readiness to start over every day. But the very qualities that once helped him become a great basketball star now helped him move forward outside of sports. Gradually, Thompson began appearing near basketball again, but in a different role. He began working with young players, meeting with students, and sharing his own experience. He didn't talk only about the bright moments of his career. Much more often, he spoke about how easily one can lose even the most outstanding talent if one stops controlling one's own life. Working with youth held special significance for him. Thompson aimed to show novice athletes that natural abilities open the door to big sports, but staying at the peak requires completely different qualities: character, discipline, and daily labor. His story became a convincing example that even the greatest talent cannot protect a person from wrong decisions. Over time, attitudes toward David Thompson began to change. If earlier, many remembered primarily how unexpectedly his star career was cut short, now people spoke more and more often about a man who managed to acknowledge his mistakes and change his own destiny. Such respect cannot be earned with spectacular shots or loud victories. It comes through honesty and the ability to draw the right conclusions. His meeting with the new generation of NBA stars became especially symbolic. Many famous basketball players openly acknowledged that they knew how huge Thompson's impact on the development of modern basketball was. And Michael Jordan never hid the fact that in his youth, he closely watched David's play and learned a lot from him. For Thompson, this became the best confirmation that his contribution to sports history was much greater than statistics could show. In time, he completely regained the respect of fans and the basketball community. No longer as a man who once failed to realize his full potential, but as a personality who managed to pass through severe trials, draw conclusions, and help others not repeat the same mistakes. That is why David Thompson's story does not end in disappointment. On the contrary, it reminds us that even after the most serious life defeats, a person is capable of rising again. Sometimes, the most important victory happens not before the eyes of thousands of spectators, but when no one sees your daily struggle. David Thompson's story is the story of a man who changed basketball, even if he couldn't fully unlock his potential. He inspired an entire generation of players, and his incredible leaping ability and style of play became a benchmark for future stars. In 1996, Thompson was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, recognition that his contribution to the development of the NBA cannot be overstated. Many specialists still believe that had it not been for injuries and off-court mistakes, he could have entered the ranks of the greatest players in history. But even without that, David Thompson forever remained one of the brightest and most talented figures of his time. And finally, the promised little-known fact. Many are sure the nickname Skywalker appeared thanks to the movie Star Wars. In reality, David Thompson received it almost simultaneously with the release of the first part of the saga in 1977. The nickname described his incredible flights over the court so precisely that it stuck with him for life and became one of the most famous in basketball history. If you like this story, be sure to watch other videos on our channel. Links to the most interesting releases about NBA legends whose fates proved no less amazing have already appeared on the screen.